Hey there everyone, and welcome to Let's Play the Neverhood. This is 2D Life, and I'll be your guide through our wacky claymation adventure. That right there is our protagonist, Klaymerg, taking a nap, and we woke him up by clicking on his eye. Actually, you can click just about anywhere on the screen to get him to get up. The Neverhood is a clay animated adventure game, as I mentioned. It took, I think, something like 6 tons of clay to make this game, and it is beautifully animated for its time when it came out in '96. This is around the same time that games like Mario 64 and Crash Bandicoot were coming out. In my opinion, this game is gorgeous looking for the time period. In fact, it's still pretty good looking for even almost 10 years later. Mostly because of the fact that it's a stop-motion animation thing, and you can do whatever you want with animation to some degree. There is the color depth limitation, so you'll see some pixels here and there. But other than that, I think it looks pretty good. This is probably one of the best-looking clay animated games. This and its sequel, Skull Monkeys. There were a couple more, but not too many of them, such as Clay Fighter and I think Claymates by same people who did Clay Fighter. Either way, this game was a lot more well done than the others. They actually build a gigantic world to move the camera around in, along with a smaller one to do all these 2D animations, and you'll see what I mean by that. Here's a little bug. When you press this button, Klaymerg seems to fall down, and then press the button again, and actually get the right animation this time. I haven't seen that happen before, but it seems like it's kind of weird. Anyway, puzzle here is that fourth ring opens the door, but it doesn't stay down, so we need to find a way to keep that door open. Just want to show off here that the other rings don't do anything. And we have a little Venus flytrap at the bottom there, just staring at us menacingly. Although it didn't really want to eat us before it spit us out. Let's go ahead and climb this ladder and see what's down below. And yes, we must watch the entire ladder climbing animation. And this seems to be like a little annex off of the Neverhood. The world itself is called the Neverhood. But this seems to be just a little teeny tiny planetoid, orbitoid, something like that, just out in space. And here we get a letter from Willie, telling you to feed his flytrap ring food. Obviously that is the solution to the puzzle above. Feed the rings to the flytrap to keep the door open. This mailbox is for hints. Willie, whoever that is, will send you hints on what to do next in the game if you're kind of stuck. He also sends you a bunch of useless stuff too, as you can see there. I'll just show off a few letters that you can get from him. There's actually a whole bunch of them that are just a bunch of nonsense. I do like how Willie will screw up Klaymerg's name a lot in these, seemingly on purpose. So one thing I think that really gives a lot of character to this game is the music. It's made by a musician named Terry Scott Tyler, and I think it gives a whole lot of character to the game. It just gives it a whole much more wackier, whimsical feel to it, I think, and I think the game would not be the same without the music. A little more background on the game. It was created by Mr. Doug Tenapple of Earthworm Jim fame. Him and a crew of about 8 people left Shiny to make this game, and it was published by DreamWorks Interactive. Looks like they dropped Tommy Tallarico, who did some of the music for Shiny, and instead decided to go with Terry Scott Tyler, which I think was a great choice. Still no mail. Thanks, Willie. and Willie will think less of us if we throw that letter away. But yeah, with the music, you might have noticed that it's all just a bunch of seemingly pointless ditties. There's really no real words to it. Every once in a while, it will say something like, everybody, something or other. But in general, it's all just sounds and just wacky sounding music, and it does a great job of setting the mood. Anyway, the obvious solution to the puzzle here is to slowly scooch this poor little piranha guy over to the ring that we want to hold down. Now, if we pick the wrong ring, nothing happens, and when we drop down, yep, it's that same animation with him eating us. So with a couple more pushes here, there we go. Let's toss that ring into the mouth. Bam! Enjoy. Not sure how filling that is, even though they're rings, I don't think they're digestible. And here is a jarring change of perspective. From the nice and quirky 2D perspective, we go into a 3D, almost Myst-like game here, and this occurs throughout the overworld. And honestly, I'm not quite sure why they did it this way. I think it's probably to save time and money, because this is just literally a camera on wheels moving around. They don't have to animate Klaymerg walking or anything. But let's head over here. There's a little thing on the floor that might be worth picking up, but one thing to note is there was a H over the door. It was kind of hard to see, mostly because it was mostly covered up. But if you were to explore more of the overworld, you would be able to see this door from a distance and notice that it is an H over the door. And why does that matter? Well, because we have a sliding block puzzle here, and we gotta form an H, that's right. I am usually terrible at these, but this one's actually pretty easy. Now the game is throwing some very softball puzzles at you here. They will get more interesting, but they do tend to stick to some of the cliches, like the sliding block puzzle seen here. Here we go, H. So there's another one of those little disc things, and what looks like a TV in the background. So maybe those discs go into that TV. Let's click and see what happens.
Hello! Me Willie. Me Willie trombone. These discs tell a story. Story about good. Story about bad. These discs are all that are left of the true story. True story of the closing of the Third Age. Willie know that once you know this truth, then you know what to do. Listen, I tell you.
And that's it. We have no more discs, so we can't watch more of the story. So that was Willie. He probably is the guy who's been sending us those letters, and he sent us on a quest to find more of those discs to hear his story. So let's get on that. Alright, and this is the infamous Hall of Records. First off, let's turn on the lights and see this mural in the background with a guy in a crown and what possibly looks like a robot. Interesting. And here we are. This is the Neverhood Chronicles, which chronicle the Neverhood. They are about 40 screens long. You'll see. But first, let's see what's behind this guarded gate here that we just turned off. Hey, another disc thing that we can watch Willie's stories on, and a button to push, which seems to have done nothing. Finally, there's only one other thing in this room that really makes sense to look at. Yep. And it's the animation of what looks like that robot from the mural getting shot by a cannon. And that's about it. Anyway, back to the holo records. The holo records are known by people who play this game as being probably one of the worst parts of this game. It is, as I said, 40 screens of text and history about the Neverhood written on the walls, and at the very end there is another disc that we have to find. They have been written by Quarter, who has been commanded by Father to write on these walls. Let's just say these take a very long time to walk through, and once you get to the end, you have to walk all the way back. So what I've done for this part is I've actually spliced in a bit of the documentary that's also included on the Neverhood disc about the creation of the Neverhood. And so you folks can enjoy that instead of watching me walk through 40 odd rooms and then 40 more rooms for about 8 minutes or so. So I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you at the end.
It all started in 1988 with an art show of mine called A Beautiful Day in the Neverhood. It was 17 paintings that depicted a little clay city with little clay people running around in it. Years later, myself and my team found ourselves at Steven Spielberg's house pitching this idea for a PC game, and DreamWorks Interactive loved it. We started brainstorming right there, and we started just drawing like crazy and coming up with monsters and contraptions and puzzles, and those were the most creative days of my life.
After we established the style of the game, we went into the building phase, building the sets. First, I mapped out the set and how it was going to be constructed. I ended up building 2 different sets: a large-scale set for the camera to move through, and then a smaller set so that we could show the whole world. We didn't have enough room to actually build the whole world on a larger scale. A lot of the buildings were designed. A lot of it had to do with the limitations of the materials, the wood and the clay, and then some of the other elements of the world, some of the trees and a lot of the overhanging elements had to do with just nice compositions for each shot. That was sort of the way that a lot of the look came about was really had to do with a lot of the restrictions and working around.
We used about 3 tons of clay, I'd say, to cover the sets and the interiors. We just stored the clay pretty much everywhere in the halls when I was a kid. What we did is we came up with a technique. We'd use hot plates to heat the clay up in like large turkey pans, and then we'd spread it with spatulas and putty knives and sheetrock knives and stuff like that. The colors that we had to mix, we'd get a sample on paper, and then we'd try and match it as close as we could, or I'd try and match it as close as we could, or whoever. And we just put it on, let it cool down, then we'd have to thumb it to get texture out so it didn't look like frosting on a cake.
I was in charge of the longer flick scenes in the game, some of the dramatic sequences. It's a really odd process. I start with storyboards. I draw everything out and paste the timing on it, record the voices, and then have the lighting set up, point the cameras, And after all this prep work, it could be hours for a shot, I finally get to get in and animate. The painstaking process of moving a puppet a little bit and shooting a frame. Moving a puppet a little bit and shooting a frame. And it comes up to being about 15 frames per second.
The way that we approached the first-person movement was to build a track system out of wood. We looked into other systems, motion-controlled camera, and 3D generated artwork, but we wanted to stay away from all of that. We wanted to kind of go the low-tech route. The way that the camera movements are handled, the camera sits down on this track and is moved along in small increments, 15 per second. And the turns are handled by hubs that rotate, that the camera sits on and rotates.
My role in creating the Neverhood was to do all the puppet animation, the interactive puppet animation, where you are controlling Klaymerg or any of the other characters. That's the animation I did. Oh, I don't know, maybe 20,000 frames of animation using latex puppets with mechanical armatures and clay puppets with wire armatures. Yeah.
Hi, kids. Hi, Terry. My name is Uncle Terry. Hi, Uncle Terry. And I do the music for the Neverhood. It starts with a guitar. This is a guitar. And this is a guitar chord. What Uncle Terry does is he waits for the muse to visit him before he writes a song. I'm going to wait right now.
From the start of the Neverhood, we knew that the sound and music was going to be, an integral part of making the Neverhood come alive and be real. We wanted the sound effects to be very earthy, almost grotesque, thuddy clay. The music, because the gaming industry was all going to heavy metal and techno, we wanted to kind of take a right turn and go into blues and just Dixieland, just funky, crazy stuff, which we knew Terry Taylor, whom I'm a big fan of, was very good at, very versatile. He did a couple of songs, they worked out very well, and, he got hired. The voices of the characters, we couldn't afford any more voice actors, so we all did them ourselves. And I did Clog and Hoborg and Big Robot Bill, and Mark Lorenzen did Willie Trombone. Clog, we would have me say something like, "I know what you're thinking and you can forget it!" And then we would pitch it up an octave, so he sounded like this little, crusty little guy, evil, with evil heart.
I'm a recovering programmer, and I'm proud of it. I worked on the engine, I worked on resource compilers and just pixels and bits and pixels and bits, and I programmed and I slept a little bit once in a while, but mostly I programmed.
When we first decided to make a video game using a bunch of clay and sets, I was really excited because that sounded like a fun thing to be in on. So we brought in some carpenters and they started building these wood sets, and I wanted to help, but I had to set up a network and write some animation tools for the artists. But then they started playing the set, and I thought, yeah, it's going to be fun. But I had to write a sound engine for the game and work on some of the first-person puzzles. And before I knew it, everything was built, and they filmed everything, and I hadn't gotten to have any fun. Just the artists had fun. The programmers, we worked in our offices. But they got to use computers. In fact, this is Doug's computer right here. He used it every day. He got to use computers and play with clay. I was stuck using computers. Well, Mr. Doug Nagle, this is what I think about that. Oh man. Oh man. Oh man.
And we're back. Death to the demon Doug Tenapple for making us go through all that. So, not much left to do other than to plug in our 2 discs into our little video watching thingy and watch them. So, enjoy the 2 discs, and I will see you folks next time.
He had to. He make a world full of beauty and wonder. This world, the Neverhood, a world where he could live forever and evermore. Hoborg thought this world would make him happy, but it make him sad. Walking around his big, beautiful new world make him feel all alone.